What is going on, guys? This is the All Access podcast, and this is great. The show got even handsomer than it was before because Mackie's not here. Dude, I am so pumped to have you on the show today to talk. Like you said, there's a lot of big things that have happened all across the state in sports. We'll probably get into some Hornets talk later, lots of injuries happening with them. But the big news yesterday, first things first, Sam Darnold coming in. That's not what people wanted. You know, Panthers kind of showed their hand. The Deshaun Watson situation, we're not going to get into that too deeply, but that probably had a huge effect on this that, hey,
Absolutely.
we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We don't know exactly what we're going to get. We don't know how the legal process is going to play out. We need to make a move. They showed their hand early. We've talked about it, me and Mackie, that from the very beginning, everyone knew that they needed to upgrade. So to take that, do you like that or maybe not that you like, hopefully that you do, but this Carolina Panthers team is finally paying attention to what a lot of the fans are saying. They're finally making the moves. It might not have been the right move because it is Sam Darnold, but do you like that the team is actually being out there? Scott Fitterer is saying, hey, here's what we need to do. We're addressing the O-line. You know, Curtis Samuel had to go, but we did bring in a couple more weapons. Do you like that they're actually being super proactive? In my opinion, super proactive?
I do, and I think even with the Sam Darnold move, to me, I feel like we are in a bit of a win now mode. As funny as that seems, you know, our division's really
Yeah.
tough. You know, we've got some really good quarterbacks in the division, some really solid other teams. But the thing is, man, is we've got some young guys on small contracts that we need to take advantage of right now. We've got Christian McCaffrey in his prime. You know, there's guys on this roster that make it a winnable roster. You know,
Yeah.
and so they are. I think they're making moves to fill the holes, and if they recognize that something's not working, Matt Rule and Fitterer and Joe Brady and these guys, Tepper even too, they're not patient, and I think at times that can be a detriment. But I think in our current situation, it's a good thing. You know, I don't think Teddy was going to cut it. I think you, me, and Mackie have all recognized that. And they weren't okay with just sitting by the wayside and letting him be the quarterback again. I think the Panthers are in a tough situation. I would completely agree with you in the sense that I think the Panthers are the top dog to get Deshaun Watson. I think that the deal was likely close. I think the Texans on their end are probably the only reason it didn't get done. I feel like we were willing to do whatever it was going to take. And so our sights are on Watson. We didn't explore a whole lot else because our sights are on Watson. And maybe we did explore other things, but it was kind of always just something we kept on the back burner because Deshaun was our guy. All these you know, accusations come out. It puts us in a tough spot because now other people, you know, the Rams have made moves for Stafford, and some other guys are moving around, and now the 49ers trade up in the draft to pick 3. The Falcons are not going to trade back with us because we're within the division. The Jets clearly wanted to take Wilson at 2. Suddenly the Panthers are you know, in a really hard place if they want to move on from Teddy but still get a solid option. And for what they gave up, Sam Darnold was certainly an upgrade in my opinion, purely on a tool set basis.
Getting into the draft, you said a lot of things that they're not going to be trading back. We're probably going to be sat where we are. A lot of mock drafts came out today. They said that the quarterbacks are going to be going in the first 5 positions, first 6 positions, possibly the 7th, with the Detroit Lions being the last of the quarterback picks. If that's the case and there's no quarterbacks left, where are the Panthers going to be turning in pick number 8? How are they going to be going about this? There's still a lot of needs on this team, but what's the most important thing at pick number 8 for them to get?
So, I mean, I'm a big believer in drafting for talent,
Yeah.
right? And I think people cringe at that in Panther fandom because Gettleman was a big fan of drafting for talent, not need, right? So I'm not saying you don't ignore need. You have to draft for need a little bit, or you're going to have 5 guys at one position that you don't want, right? So I think it's a balance, but I think you have to draft for talent. And sitting there at 8, I could definitely see a guy like Kyle Pitts falling to 8 potentially, especially with the top 5 picks potentially being quarterbacks. Even if it's only 4 quarterbacks in the first 8 picks up to us, I think there's still a chance for Pitts to fall there with what some of the other team needs are. And if we don't get Pitts, if the Carolina Panthers don't have the opportunity to take Kyle Pitts, I think that there are 2 brilliant offensive linemen that potentially are going to be available there at 8. We just franchise tagged Taylor Moton. who had a Pro Bowl caliber season
Fantastic
last year.
season.
Absolutely great season. People sleep on Matt Paradis. He really can hold the fourth down in the center. He's a consistent snapper in the middle there. If we draft a guy like Penei Sewell at 8, potentially even Rashawn Slater, another fabulous offensive lineman, who's consistently climbing draft boards right now. Those two guys fill another spot starting right away day one for that offensive line. Suddenly you've got 3 really scary offensive linemen in Moton, Paradis, and either Slater or Sewell. Now you've only got 2 slots that you really have to fill in that line, and we just signed 2 other guys this offseason for that offensive line. We've retained a couple guys that we felt like played really well, and suddenly those guys are competing for those last 2 spots, and you're gonna get some great offensive line play from this team. You're gonna protect Sam Darnold. You're gonna give him time to get the ball into the playmakers' hands, and I think offensive line has to be the way you go if Kyle Pitts isn't available at 8.
Yeah. Again, you're listening to the All Access podcast live on YouTube. You can hear it on any audio platform tomorrow morning. So thank you for everyone joining us live, just like David, who says if Penei Sewell is available at number 8, it's a no-brainer, right? And I have to agree. I know you kind of got into that point, but this is how I see it. A good front 7, because cornerback is another need we talked about, so let me preface it with that, but I feel like a good front 7 can kind of mask the fact that there's only 2 cornerbacks on this roster right now. Like a decent cornerback play can be hidden by a good front 7. A bad left side of the offensive line, there's no getting around that. Teams will pick you apart time in and just game in and game out. So I think Sewell or whoever else is there is a no-brainer over people like Michael Parsons, Kyle Pitts, Surtain, who some people are saying could go very early because he is probably the best defensive back in this draft. Sure. But I think that offensive line is a absolute need for you to get early on. I mentioned.
I would say it to you this too, real quick, Bradley. If they don't want to take Sewell or Slater there, which would shock me, it really would.
Agreed.
And for those of you, I know Sewell's the hot name right now in offensive linemen for the high up in the draft. For those of you listening, if you haven't checked out Rashawn Slater, go look at his tape. He played against a game against Ohio State when Young was there, Chase Young, right? Multiple plays in that game, he's going one-on-one with Chase Young and absolutely shutting him out of the game. Pancake blocked him on one play. Making reads, man. Chase Young isn't just releasing outside every time. He's doing inside releases. They're trying all these things to try to free up Chase Young, and Rashawn Slater shuts him down every time. So check out Rashawn Slater. However, if the Panthers don't go Slater, they don't go Sewell, I think Surtain becomes a really, really mouthwatering prospect there for the Panthers, but I don't think you have to take him at 8. I think looking at some of the teams that come after us, specifically the Broncos really at 9, I think you can trade back. I think you can potentially trade back, maybe gain another asset later on, and take Surtain at 9. It's risky to let him fall beyond the Cowboys. I think he potentially does go to the Cowboys at 10 if he gets that far. But if the Panthers aren't serious about beefing up that offensive line or maybe taking a guy like Pitts, I think it's smart for them to trade back, gain some more picks, and potentially go for a guy like Parsons or Surtain maybe 2 or 3 picks later.
So would you be okay with them taking Micah Parsons, even though they have a really good front 7, a good linebacking core? You'd be okay with them taking? I know a lot of people wouldn't be, but you say that. Again, talent, sometimes you just have to take whatever the best talent is, and that might be the situation if he falls.
So I would be disappointed if we don't take an offensive lineman there at 8. So I would ultimately say that no, I wouldn't be super happy with Parsons trading back and taking him. I will say, though, Parsons is a heck of a player, and that guy is a ball hawk.
Super good.
He's fast. He's instinctual. I mean, he's one of the best linebacker prospects that this league has seen in probably the last 3 or 4 years. So. I think that he's going to make an impact wherever he goes. If that happens to be Carolina, I'm going to support him, right? I mean, we're Panther fans, so at the end of the day, you're going to support him.
Going to cheer whoever they take. I want the best for him.
Right. I think this team needs an offensive lineman, though, and let me say this. I think it's very possible. If you want, Bradley, I've got a little mock here for the first 10 picks of the draft. If you want to run through it, we can, and it might give you a good sense of where these guys might fall. So
absolutely,
I'm no ESPN expert, right, or anything, but I do follow the draft pretty closely. I watch this thing every year. I watch tape of these guys
Hmm.
on YouTube. I try to dig up anything I can to learn what I can
Yeah.
before the draft comes. It's like a holiday for me, man. It's like Christmas.
Dude, it's the best
So
time of the year, man. We've been into it. It is the best time. I love the NFL draft. We're a little less than 30 days away. So I'm
it
excited to hear. This
is,
is the
man.
first one that we've done on the All Access podcast. The first mock draft, I'm sure, of many that me and Gray will do together. So yeah, let's get into this. Where are we going? Let's go with the top 10. What do the top 10 picks look
Good.
like to
So,
Gray?
so top 10 for me, the first two I think are going to be pretty obvious, so we can burn through them. But
Yeah.
the Jaguars are going to take Trevor Lawrence at one,
Hmm.
and I'm pretty confident about that. I think most people are. I mean, 6'6", big arm,
Just
winner
nasty
mentality.
talent.
He's one of the best prospects people have seen, and people aren't even talking about him anymore because they're so certain that he's going to go number one
Yeah.
overall that it's not even a bother. So people are sleeping on him
Without
now,
question.
almost in a sense. Lawrence is going to be impressive, and he'll go one. Wilson, two to the Jets. They clearly have held that pick for a reason. I'm sure the 49ers were knocking on their door too. I'm sure the Panthers have been knocking on their door
Hmm.
too. I don't think they're budging.
No.
And they're going to take Wilson there. And obviously they traded Darnold to us. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a given as well. And I'll say quickly about Wilson, he's going to be unbelievable too. He has the fastest throwing mechanics of anybody I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
Very instinctual player. He feels the pocket extremely well when there's pressure from the blind side. He's checking that shoulder. He's feeling that pressure. He uses his legs to get out, and then he sets his feet and makes a great throw downfield. And it only takes a blink of an eye because he's got such a great motion. So I think he's going to be a real special player. The Jets are going to get him at two. Hopefully they can put some weapons around him.
Hopefully
Coming
for
in
his sake, yeah. Because
yeah,
and just to stop you on Zach Wilson, I really think Zach Wilson will have, depending on his situation that he's put into, like you said, the Jets surrounding him with stuff. I think Coach Robert Bob Saleh is going to do a great job with the New York Jets. So hopefully he gets his time to shine because I think Zach Wilson is going to be the best that comes out of here. I mentioned it to Mackey. The ability to make the play on the run. It's almost baseball player-esque where he's able
yep,
to make any throw from any angle. So, yeah, absolutely. I think Zach Wilson, they're getting a
yeah.
hell of a ball player with him.
Yeah, and he is just cool as a cucumber, man. You see that pressure. I mentioned his pocket presence and his pocket awareness,
Yeah,
but he feels pressure like nobody else, and then he doesn't panic. Some guys
never.
feel pressure great, but then they panic. They feel that pressure, and it's like, great, buddy, you recognized it, but then you got to make the throw. And
Yeah.
Wilson does every time. He does every time, and it's a dime.
Hmm.
And I think he's going to have a successful career. I agree that Salah's going to have the Jets in a good way. He's going to be a defensive-minded first guy, and
It's
that's
going to be a
important to
strong
win
team.
games. So I hope that he does see a chance to shine,
Yeah.
unlike maybe how Darnold started his career for the Jets. So coming in at three, this is an interesting one. I've been watching mocks today that
Hmm.
have Mac Jones going at three, which is I would be shocked. That would be a really interesting thing if the Niners traded up
For them
that
to
far.
trade up for Mac Jones.
Right. I
Could have had
wouldn't
Teddy.
understand that. I am actually really confident that they're going to take Justin Fields at three. And I know some of the words and the things surrounding Justin Fields right now, but I can tell you want to say something. What's up?
No, I'm in agreement. I think anyone that takes Mac Jones over Justin Fields, who has played just incredible football in some really, really big games, I think, again, I don't work for any professional team. I'm by no means an expert, but just based off the eye test, Justin Fields has another level that he can reach. Mac Jones is kind of here.
Yep.
And, we've seen it, and maybe it's just a product of being from Alabama. You saw it with Greg McElroy. You saw it with A.J. McCarron. You saw it with some of these other guys that have come out of Alabama, that they are just a product of what Alabama is. And that's just a all-around tremendous team. And they become that game manager type that everyone has. And I don't want Mac Jones because of that reason. I wouldn't want my team to take Mac Jones because I think he has a very low ceiling.
I totally agree. I think his ceiling is about what it is now, and that's not to say he won't get better, but I think he's just going to get better at what he's doing now. I don't think there's a whole lot outside of what he's doing now. I think a guy like Fields, you see what he can do now, and you can build all around that. You can run so many different schemes with him and do so many different things, and he's only going to get better as a passer, which is exciting. So I'm very confident that the Niners take Fields at three, and there's a couple reasons for that too, Bradley. I actually was watching some guys talk about this from several different places, and it came up that Justin Fields used to go to football camp with Kyle Shanahan in high school. So
Really?
Shanahan's known about Fields for a long time.
Look at these little secret nuggets we have on the show today.
There you go. There you go. Dropping
What
some
you know?
knowledge, right? So, yeah, Shanahan was a summer camp coach for Justin Fields
Huh.
during his high school days. And then, another little nugget that a lot of people are obviously aware of this. It's not a huge deal, but Nick Bosa, Ohio State player, very
Yep.
prominent on the 49ers team there. He obviously knows about Justin Fields, is in close contact with the Ohio State coaching staff. I'm sure that there's been some kind of communication with him
Absolutely.
about Justin Fields, and that can't hurt, right? I'm not saying it's going to be the reason he gets drafted, but it can't hurt. So I feel like the 49ers and Ohio State, they have a decent connection.
Hmm.
I think Fields is a brilliant prospect that teams can see molding into somebody really special. And I'll tell you another thing. The Niners are still sitting there with Jimmy G, right? So
Yeah.
they can get a guy like Justin Fields, bring him in, work those mechanics behind Jimmy G for a year, pull
Yeah.
a little Kansas City Chiefs action, let Jimmy G go. They start Fields after year one, and that kid comes in unbelievable because
On
he's had a year to
fire.
develop behind Jimmy G, who has great mechanics,
Hmm.
who can teach him how to feel that pocket out, and then Fields just gets to add in that natural athletic ability. That I think that could be a really special player for the 49ers there.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think your expectations of what you have to do in a 49ers offense, which maybe that is why they might be looking at Mac Jones, but I feel like you don't have to do a lot in this San Francisco team. Like, they're going to play physical defense, should continue now that Salah's gone, but they're going to play physical defense, and it's a run-first oriented offense. You put any quarterback there, they should have a little bit of success. But you put a guy like Justin Fields in there who's dynamic, you can start running some better RPO opportunities, and they'll be just fine with him if they take him. So where are we going next with 4?
So at 4, I've got two things here. So I think if the Falcons sit here, they take Trey Lance, right, and they get that quarterback of the future. It makes sense. Matt Ryan's
Mm-hmm.
32 years old. The division, Drew Brees just retired. Brady obviously is a question mark on when he's going to be out, but
Yeah.
it's got to be in a couple of years, right? I mean,
Oh,
you got
eventually.
yeah. So the point is that you've got a couple of really dominant veteran quarterbacks in that
Mhm.
division that are now starting to phase out, and it's gonna be the young guys stepping in who
Yeah.
take over that division, and so the Falcons need to be thinking about that now, not later. Trey
Agreed.
Lance is a good pick for them there.
Mhm.
Here's my caveat with that though. Let's say the Falcons decide, you know what, it's not time to move on. Matt Ryan won an MVP a couple years ago. We've lost a couple weapons since then. Our defensive play has declined mightily
Yeah.
since the Super Bowl run. What if we try to beef up this team one more time and try to do it with Matt Ryan? And in that case, they don't need necessarily, I think, to sit at 4, right? Because they could get a guy they really like later on and gain some assets later on in the draft. People are going to be trying so hard to
Mhm.
trade up for that 4th pick once Lawrence and Wilson and Fields are all gone. People are going to be saying Lance. That's the only guy left, maybe.
Yep.
Lance, right? And so I think it's very possible that the Broncos, who currently sit at 9, trade up with the Falcons to go to 4. They take Trey Lance, who will start for them day one
Yeah.
over Drew Lock, and the Falcons trade back to 9. They probably add maybe a pick in the 2nd or 3rd round this year, maybe next year. They beef up some extra picks, but they still get to take a guy they like at 9. And I'll go ahead and say I think if they go to 9,
Mhm.
that they wait there and they take Micah Parsons to fill the hole at linebacker that they've got right now.
And I have to applaud you for that take because I think that is probably what is best for this Atlanta Falcons team. You look at their offensive line, they had 5 offensive line starters that were all first round picks when they were taken, and the only team in the league that had all first round offensive line. Matt Ryan, you can still get a couple more years out of him, probably 2 out of him. You don't need to beef up your wide receiver. Maybe it's a running back, but there's no one that's high. So I think, yeah, moving back for Atlanta, an NFC South rival, I don't want to see them improve, but I think if they want to improve, it's definitely addressing that. What seems like they're always trying to improve is that defensive side of the ball. And yeah, I mean, the Denver Broncos moving up is definitely something that should be done and could be done. I don't think Drew Lock is the answer for them at all.
Yep. Yep. And I think really the big thing there is, do the Falcons want to take Trey Lance? If
Yeah.
they do, they're going to take him right there. And if they don't, they would be, in my opinion, a little dumb not to trade back, because there's
Hmm.
so many people that want that pick 4.
A
And
lot
if
of
you can
people.
get back even a couple spots,
Yeah.
and gain a second or third round pick this year, next year, that's just more assets for you, right? And you might even trade those picks later to get somebody else or something, but that's still money in your pocket, right?
Hmm.
And I think the Falcons would be, kind of kidding themselves if they don't take Lance at 4, but then
Yeah.
they draft somebody else they could get later. I'll move on to pick 5, and this is an interesting one. I think the Bengals, a lot of people are tossing around different things. A lot of people are saying Jamar Chase and a wide receiver going there, especially with,
Could.
they've got a pretty big hole there. I could definitely see that. I'm not counting that out. I will say this though: Joe Burrow last year had an okay receiving core, and couldn't stay protected. He was constantly scrambling. He obviously got
Yeah.
injured because he couldn't get protected, and he's running for his life. And they just went up and got him last year, with the first pick,
Hmm.
and they've got this guy who clearly is a competitor, and we haven't even really seen, I think, the tip of the iceberg with
Yeah.
him, or we've only seen the tip of the iceberg with him. And so I think you have to go offensive line if you're Cincinnati. You
Yeah.
have to. You've got to protect your man of the future. The receiver is a deep position throughout the league, and I would say that special offensive linemen don't necessarily come around often. There's two good ones, and I've already said their name today. Penei Sewell, I think, is going to go to the Bengals at 5 there out of Oregon. Absolute beast, Penei Sewell. I mean, there's not a whole lot else to say about the guy. He just flies around the field. He's fast for his position. He's strong for his position, and he's going to be a great tackle in this league. So I got the Bengals taking Penei Sewell there, shoring up the protection for Joe Burrow. The Dolphins come in right after them at pick 6, and I think this one, if it is interesting, they're definitely going to go receiver for me
Oh,
here.
absolutely.
Tua is stepping in at starter for them. I think is very likely, and so they're going to need guys to support him. Jamar Chase, if he doesn't go to the Bengals before that, is the obvious choice there. I think at number 6, he's got the best intangibles of any receiver in this draft,
Hmm.
in terms of just like, you look at his tape and you look at his physicals and you look at his combine numbers and you're just like, wow, like
Blown away.
I can't fault this guy. So, and it doesn't hurt that he was catching passes from Joey B last year, when he was playing. So
Yeah. It's a match made in
I,
heaven if he would have gone to Cincinnati, but they're not in the need at this point.
interesting point there. That is an interesting point, and I think that makes it a good possibility. I just think they got to protect Joe, so I think Chase falls
Agreed.
to the Dolphins, and I think the Dolphins take Jamar Chase there. I haven't said Kyle Pitts' name yet, which I think could have gone to either of these two teams as well. The thing about Pitts is the Bengals. I think they're more in need of protection, and the Dolphins, they've got Mike Gesicki, a really
Hmm.
solid tight end. He had a great season last year, and
Yeah.
I know Pitts is special, but you need receiver more. So I think the Dolphins go Chase. The Lions come in next, and a lot of people have the Lions going quarterback in this draft. Here's the thing, though. I
Yeah.
don't think I don't know if they're going to love Mac Jones. I think Mac Jones' grades are all over the place right now.
Hmm.
Second round, third round for some people, top 5 pick for others. I'm not sure the
It's
Lions
crazy.
are going to want to take Mac Jones there, especially when they just got Goff, who obviously isn't a superstar, but I'm not sure he's any really different than Mac Jones, right? So
Yeah.
you're really going to waste that pick there at 7, taking a guy that might be better than Jared Goff, and when you really just made this trade to swap QBs, I wouldn't really understand that as much. So
Yeah.
I think the Lions go receiver here,
Yeah. Give him a weapon.
and I think they go Devonta Smith.
Yeah.
And this was a tough one for me. I almost put Jalen Waddle here in this scenario. And I see a thing coming in right now from Nick, asking who the Lions QB right now is. They just got Jared Goff, yeah, in a swap with the Lions. They're
Yep.
sending
With the
Stafford
Rams.
to swap with the thank you, sending him out to L.A. Stafford out to L.A. So I think the Lions here got to add a weapon. They're going to
Hmm.
try to help out Jared Goff, and Devonta Smith, just incredible.
Fits
Just
that mold.
explosive player. He is a Tyreek Hill-esque player, and Tyreek Hill is one of the best receivers in the league right now. He's proving that size doesn't always matter. If you can take the top off of a defense, you're stretching out that defense
Yeah.
every single play, and that is such a big deal in this league, man. It's the difference between Teddy and Sam, and we might talk about this a little later, but being able to stretch the top of a defense and have the safeties play, 15, 20 yards off the line of scrimmage rather than 5-10 yards off the line of scrimmage, how we were getting played against a lot last year, is a monumental difference. A guy like Devonta Smith takes the top off a defense. It frees up other space for other people. I think the Lions go there at pick 7.
Yeah, so, I think I was going to say, I think giving him another weapon for Goff, especially to replace Kenny Golladay, who's now with the New York Giants, I think that's essential. If you're a Lions fan, you're hoping that it's going to be either Waddle, or Kyle Pitts. I could see going there as well. To have that offensive weapon. You mentioned it maybe possibly to Miami. He could be a wide receiver. I know there's some people that say, oh, he could be a wide receiver. It's like, well, he's a tight end. Like, let the man play what he wants to play. Don't make him into something that he's not going to be. But I'm not going to stop you any farther. Nick, he says Goff is a trash. Draft a quarterback. And again, I think Mac Jones might go to the Detroit Lions. I'm kind of in that boat just so you can have that in their back pocket, because I don't know if you can trust Goff at this point. I think the Lions is just a horrible situation all around. But the Carolina Panthers, pick 8, this year's draft. We've talked about a lot of guys. We've said a lot of things that we want. There's the need for a cornerback. There's the need for the offensive line. There's some people that are saying it needs to be Kyle Pitts. It could be the Micah Parsons. In the book that is going to come true, because I know you can see right into the future, Gray, on draft night, pick 8. What are the Panthers doing with this pick?
So, I mean, we've been running through this, and you see the way I've gotten it laid out now. Kyle Pitts falls to us at 8, right?
Yeah, he does.
And that is very exciting news, Panther fans. And I'll tell you why I think he falls to 8, a guy who normally should go in the top 3 of this draft. He's that good.
Wow.
This guy is 6'5", 245 pounds, ran a 4.44.
Stupid speed.
I mean, he is almost Calvin Johnson. Seriously. He's almost Calvin Johnson, but he learned how to play tight end instead of wide receiver. And that's great. He works there too. People are flexing out tight ends nowadays. He's going to do so much for whoever drafts him at tons of different spots on the field, tight end and receiver included. I think he'll line up in the backfield sometimes to throw blocks back there, release out of the backfield like Greg Olsen used to a little bit. I think he's a really interesting player. I think he falls to 8 because we've already talked about the quarterback race. I think 4 quarterbacks go in the first 4 picks. The Bengals need a receiver or offensive lineman. The Dolphins have Mike Gesicki. They need a receiver. They might take Pitts, but I think a receiver makes more sense for them. The Lions, I think if they don't take Mac Jones, have to go receiver too. They've got TJ Hawkinson, who they just drafted a couple years ago. And
they have their guy.
They've got their guy. They don't need a guy. So I think this draft for Panthers fans in general, this is exciting because we need tight end badly. It's a very open hole. It's a very big open hole within our roster, and this is a guy who we would never have a chance at unless we had a terrible season most of the time. I think 8 or 9 drafts out of 10, this guy is gone before we ever even smell him, and we have a chance to get him in this draft this year, and I think that is incredible. I think the Panthers have to go Kyle Pitts if he's sitting there at 8. Even if Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater are still on the board, we signed a few offensive linemen. We've got some options there maybe to work with. It wouldn't be as secure as if we took one of those guys, Sewell or Slater. But, man, my mouth waters at Kyle Pitts. And if you're a football fan and you've played football and you kind of understand it, I don't think there's any reason why you wouldn't be feeling the same way.
So there's a couple of things that I absolutely love about this pick and a couple of things that I'm going to shy away from with this. Number one, adding another weapon to Joe Brady's offense makes me excited. And if you're in the chat, let us know exactly who you want the Panthers to take.
I see Nick commenting down here too. I like it, man. He said, "Cool, greater than Pitts." I hear you. I do. Keep going.
So adding another weapon to the Joe Brady offense is something that, like you said, makes you salivate, man. It gets you pumped up, man. Sam Darnold out here whipping the ball around, like that gets me pumped. I love offensive football. I want to see big numbers put up. I want to see playmakers spread the field, open up that defense that they're going to be playing against, and I would be ecstatic to see him here. If the Panthers had not have signed a couple of off-season offensive linemen, I would say without a doubt you have to take an offensive lineman. But with the patchwork offensive line that they've put together in the offseason and the absolute abysmal tight end play that we've had since Greg Olsen left, like you said. I think Kyle Pitts is a terrific guy to fit that spot. So I hate to agree, but at the same time, I love to agree that we can both say that Kyle Pitts might be that guy. Bill Belichick told Chase Young last year, hey, I hope my team never sucks enough that I get to draft a guy like you. Well, the Panthers team sucks enough to get a guy like Kyle Pitts, who should be that top 3 talent, but because of teams' needs, he is going to fall down to that 8 to 14 range. And, I mean, if the talent's there, you just got to take it.
That's right. And that's earlier why I said, man, I'm a fan of talent, not neglecting position need, because doing that can get you in trouble too. But you have to recognize talent when it's there. A guy like Sewell, a guy like Rashawn Slater, they might be graded right around pick 8. That's a good grade for them, right? I could see them going around pick 8. A lot of people are saying that. I don't think in a lot of other drafts would Sewell or Slater ever rise above maybe pick 5, 6, 7, 8, right? I don't think they're that top 3 pick. I really think Kyle Pitts is a guy that in other drafts goes top 3, and he's just not this year because so many people need other things. And we are lucking out if we sit there at 8 and have the chance to draft a guy like that. I think it is a pick that I don't think people will be upset about it. I do, Bradley, though, think that people will kind of be in tune a little bit with what you said, and the fact that offensive line is really important, and we do need to focus on protecting Darnold and freeing up space for Christian. And I saw Nick in the chat mentioning that too. I resonate with you guys. And if Pitts is sitting there and we take Slater or Sewell instead, I'm not going to be disappointed. Those are great players that are going to fill good needs for us. I just cannot help but think that by week 8, if we take Pitts, we're going to be sitting here saying, dude, Pitts has 4 touchdowns and it's week 8. And him and Sam Darnold already look like a connect, you know? I mean, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, thank God we took Kyle Pitts at 8. What a steal that was. I really think it's that type of player. And so that's where I have the Panthers drafting at 8. I won't take up too much time. I filled out the 9 and 10 just to round it off. I have so I have Broncos, if they don't trade up to 4, with the Falcons taking Rashawn Slater at 8. With Sewell have gone to the Bengals earlier. And then I've got the Cowboys clocking in at 10 with Patrick Surtain to shore up their secondary and their defense a little bit. And that rounds out my top 10 there. I kind of laid out, I didn't get too deep into like picks 193, 222, 226. I think at that point, there's so much can happen. You kind of just have to, play it when it comes at that point, fill some needs there that you're just kind of gambling on guys at that point. But yes, there are some great defensive line prospects later in this draft that I think the Panthers absolutely have a chance to get. And I'll go ahead and say that the first one for me, it's not a D tackle, and I've got a D tackle on this list, so I'll get to that. But it's a defensive end. We could definitely clock in at pick 39 in the second round and take this guy. Jason Owe from Penn State University. Is an absolute monster on the defensive line. And this guy is phenomenal. If you talk about supplementing Brian Burns with somebody else just as fast and scary on the other side, I think it's this guy, Jason Owe. He was, like I said, a defensive tackle out of Penn State. This guy is 6'5", 252 pounds, ran a 4.36 40-yard dash.
It's a big old boy booking it.
That is a big old boy booking it. If you got excited about Kyle Pitts at 6'5", 245, running a 4.44, this guy is 6'5", 252. He weighs 7 more pounds and ran a 4.36. This guy can fly. He did 21 reps at 225 pounds on his pro day.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So he's not really supplementing that much size for speed there. Like he's a big guy. He's a big guy who can move. I think it's in the second round, man, if we have the chance to take Jason Owe across from Brian Burns and have 2 young flyers on the outside absolutely busting it up out there, we're going to be putting a ton of young pressure on people. We've got Derek Brown in the center. You obviously, we shored up the linebacking core a little bit with Denzel Perryman replacing Tahir Whitehead in the center there. Yeah. We can now move Jermaine Carter to his natural outside linebacker position.
Much better fit for him.
And absolutely. And then Shaq fills in on the other side. Man, you put Perryman and Shaq and Carter and all these guys together that I've talked about, Owe and Burns and Derek Brown. I'm telling you, man, that interior front seven starts to get really scary all of a
Really
sudden
good.
for the Carolina Panthers. Yep. Any thoughts on that, Bradley, before I kind of dive into my second defensive line prospect here?
No, just I want to go out, maybe not on a limb, but I just want to reiterate to everyone how much fun it is to watch a big old boy book it down the line, whether an offensive lineman out there lean blocks 20, 30 yards down the field for Christian McCaffrey, or a defensive lineman that is absolutely catching up to a running back or a wide receiver 20 yards downfield. It is so much fun to see that, and that much speed with that much size is something that gets you excited. Like you said, this
Absolutely.
interior front four, front seven, the inside, I'm excited for. Now you bring in Perriman, Morgan Fox, who we haven't even talked about, who's going to be
Agree.
a
Agree. I didn't even bring up Morgan
fantastic
Fox.
addition to this defense.
A guy who's trained behind
Yeah,
Aaron Donald.
yeah, like we've said it, like, oh, he benefited because Aaron Donald's getting triple team. Yeah, so what? Like, everyone else should be playing good enough where Derek Brown should be getting double teamed, or Brian Burns should be able to get double teamed a couple of times. Morgan Fox knows how to win his one-on-one matchup, and you can't ask for anything more than that at this point. Just win your one-on-one matchup. Make them draw a double team to you, open up some opportunities for your teammates to make some plays, and this defense will continue to get better as one of the youngest defenses in the history of the NFL now moves forward under Phil Snow.
That's right. That's right. And Bradley, we talked about it earlier on the show too, man. But I am a huge believer in winning in the trenches. I
Yeah.
think good inside play fuels good outside play. You can have all the great skill positions in the world, but if you can't block anybody, you're gonna have no time to get it to them. And same
Yeah.
on the other side defensively. You know, you can have the greatest corners in the world, but if they've got to cover for 3, 4, 5 seconds, it's going to be a completion every time. So. I think good inside play fuels good outside play, and I don't think you can go wrong with a guy like that. I know you also specifically mentioned defensive tackle in the chat, David, and
Mhm.
I'll go to this. There's other guys that we could probably draft higher than this at the specific defensive tackle position, so this might not be the best defensive tackle we could take outside of pick 8, but I have the Panthers maybe considering a guy at pick 113. That's our fourth pick in the draft.
Mhm.
I believe that's in round 4 there. So I've got a guy on my list, Marvin Wilson, defensive tackle out of Florida State,
Oh wow.
and he is graded as the 8th best defensive tackle in the draft right now by the last mock that I saw, and I think that was specifically from CBS Sports, if I want to say. So this guy's 6'4", 310 pounds. He can move the line. He actually has really quick hands for how big he is, and I think that's pretty important. And the real thing here is I feel like Derek Brown is a guy who kind of just he overpowers people. You know,
Mhm.
he's pretty quick, but he throws his body into it, and
Yeah.
that's how he makes his space. This guy complements that a little bit, I think. Marvin Wilson. He's got the quicker hands. I think he's got a little bit of a quicker step. At 310 for a defensive tackle, I would say that's all right. He might be able to put on a little bit of weight there, but this guy's pretty quick. He's got quick feet, quick hands. I think if you match him up next to Derek Brown
Yeah.
and you have a guy just bulldozing through you in Derek Brown, you can have this guy stunting off of his back and doing different things to try to free up space. And once he gets a little momentum going, Marvin Wilson can really move. So I think he could be a really solid pick to maybe shore up that defensive line, rotate in with some of the guys that we've already got there.
So one thing that we haven't talked about, and I don't know if you have this anywhere on your draft board, but the defensive back position is something that we haven't really talked about yet. Carolina Panthers have Dante Jackson, and to me, that's the only defensive back. Jeremy Chin, if you want to include him. But Dante Jackson is the only guy that I'm confident can say he will be of the starting 11 for this defense, or defensive backs, next year. Are they going to be doing anything in the draft in your eyes to address that? Are they going to continue to look at free agency, or is there a guy that you want to see? You know, there's some people saying at pick 8, Surtain might come this way. I believe Joe Horn, J.C. Horn's, Joe Horn's son, J.C. Horn, might be available. He's a top talent. Don't know if that's what they're going to go after in the first round. But is there anything or anybody on your to-do list for this draft?
Sure. So I was trying to be realistic in terms of who would be available at later picks, just because considering we take a guy like Pitts or Sewell or Slater at pick 8, we're probably not going to have a great shot at a guy like Surtain or J.C. Horn. That's going to be a tough get unless we trade up for another selection. I think that's unlikely. So I think if we go cornerback at
Mhm.
pick 8, or maybe we trade back a few picks to take a guy like Surtain or Horn, that we could stack up a few more picks later in the second and third rounds to do that. And that would be an interesting choice. I think that, that's not necessarily a loss for this Panther team if they decide to trade back from 8, maybe
Yeah.
go into pick 10 or 12, take a guy like Surtain, take a guy like J.C. Horn, but maybe add an extra second round pick, or maybe add an extra third round pick to continue to add depth in other places. Um, I have highlighted a couple cornerbacks in later rounds. At pick 39, I think it's very possible that we have the chance to take a cornerback there named Greg Newsome, who's on my radar a little
Okay.
bit here. I think if we're going to take a corner in this draft, Bradley, it's got to be a guy who's built a little bit more like James Bradbury, right? A bigger corner
Physical.
who plays physical.
Hmm.
Not to be slow, obviously. Corner's got to run, but
Yeah.
you want a guy who can play the jump balls. You play in a division with Michael Thomas and Julio Jones and drawing a huge
I mean, you
blank
got
right
Mike
now.
Evans out there. You have
Mike
Terry.
Evans,
You got
thank you.
Chris Godwin down
Yeah.
there. You have a lot of
So
physical wide receivers that want to jam you at the line. So yeah, I 100% agree
yes,
that that's where you got to
yes.
go.
You need a bigger corner who can play physical to complement Dante Jackson and Troy Pride, who are a little bit more of a speedster build there. Greg Newsome is 6 foot, 192 pounds, but he still ran a 4.38. So he's got some speed there, got a little bit of physicality at 6 foot, almost 200 pounds. I like this guy. He played for Northwestern in a really tough conference in the Big Ten, going up against some really good offenses and good receivers. Knows how to play in the run game too, because of some of that physicality. I think what he lacks in speed, he makes up for in instincts. He tries to be one step ahead mentally. So I really like Greg Newsome out of Northwestern potentially in round 2 for us. And then I've also got cornerback Aaron Robinson out of UCF. Another big
Oh wow.
physical corner, a little bit faster than Greg Newsome, I would say. He's a little lighter, 6 foot, 189 versus 192,
Yeah.
I think. So, a little lighter, but really similar build. I was more looking at the build here in terms of can they be big and physical and still quick enough or instinctual enough to keep up with these guys. I think these are two candidates that we could get later, not have to take a corner super high, but
Hmm.
still get a big physical corner who knows how to be, mobile with some of these guys.
Yeah, I agree. The physicality standpoint is something that they're missing. It's something that you got with Josh Norman, who wasn't super physical, but he was lanky enough, long enough. He had the recovery speed where he could play and jab some of these wide receivers. I mean, even though Bradbury got burned by Julio Jones on more than a couple occasions, it's something that this defense really, really needs. David Brown in the chat says Jeremy Chin needs to be in the box. Agreed, but with some of the additions that they brought in, like Perriman, that Gray was talking about earlier, it's probably going to be Chin playing a little bit back and play the safety and let everything be played in front of him. I think if Jeremy Chin did struggle in one area this year, it was one-on-one coverage. Not to say that he did struggle, but that might have been his least effective personality trait or player trait is him playing one-on-one in coverage. So it'll be interesting to see how Phil Snow gets him involved year 2, because we all agree he needs to be in the box. He is an explosive defensive player, and I want to see him be involved as much as possible making these plays.
Sure. And I'll mention this too, to your point, David. I think Jeremy Chin's play in the box last year was absolutely fabulous. I
Yeah.
mean, he's a ball hawk. He forced fumbles. He played so much bigger than he was, but he's fast. He did so many things for us in the box last year, especially making up for where we were lacking in other areas. Obviously we had Tahir Whitehead not really live up to a lot of the expectations I think some people had for him.
Not even close.
Although I wasn't super hot on him to begin with, but that's another story.
No.
But I think Chin was having to fill a role that was new to him, and he did a fabulous job. I think Panther fans are forgetting we haven't even really gotten to see what he can do in the secondary yet, because so early on he got brought down into the box and kind of lived there for the rest of the season. This guy can fly around and make plays in the secondary very similarly to how he can in the box, and putting him in that safety spot is super interesting because you can flex a safety down into the box and play single high coverage and do things to work your safety into blitz packages. In fact, it might make his box play even more effective because it's being disguised as a defensive back, right? People aren't going to be looking at him as much, tagging him in blitz packages because he's a defensive back. But if you can find ways to disguise him attacking the ball and attacking the quarterback, that becomes equally as scary of a weapon to use defensively. And I'll tell you this too. Let's say we draft a guy like Jason Owe to complement Brian Burns on the opposite side. All of a sudden, you've got Brian Burns, who everybody knows what he can do. He's fast. He plays on the ball really well up front. Jason Owe, we just said 252, 6'5", ran a 4.36. He's flying off your opposite edge from Brian Burns. You have Derek Brown chewing up the middle. And how about Jeremy Chin coming off the side from a blitz package safety-wise? And, dude, I don't want to play that defense all of a sudden, right? I don't want to play that defense all of a sudden. That's scary.
Yeah.
Football's one on the defensive side, and it's one in the trenches. And I think if they can add another guy to that defensive line and flex Chin down and play him around like he's kind of meant to play from that safety position, man, I really think that defense starts to get a lot scarier than people think.
I 100% agree, because it's something that I brought up, and I know it's only 2 instances when I say this, but you look at the Chiefs and you look at the Bucks, the 2 best teams in the league, far by most people's standards this last year. Sure. That defense is built in that orientation where, hey, we want a really good front seven. We want a dialed-in pass rush. And our cornerbacks, our defensive backs can be aggressive, they can play fast, and we're willing to take some chances because we are willing to bet that our defensive front is going to get the pressure in. And if this goes to plan like you're saying, and Brian Burns has some people to accompany him on this front line, and they can get that pressure, then I feel a little bit better about the defensive backs positions and the defensive back play, because, you know, a good front seven will cover up a world of hurt that's going to be happening back there if they don't address that situation. So, I'm in the same boat with you. Shaq Thompson I'm not even going to finish saying that, Nick, because that is not true. That man would kill me 10 ways from Sunday if he ever had the opportunity to hear me say that. Granted, he's probably not watching, but he would kill me. Shaq Thompson. This is going to be the last thing I probably say about this Panthers defense here. Shaq Thompson is a guy that originally came in as an outside linebacker, had to adjust to be a middle linebacker, kind of the shot caller this year. What about bringing in Micah Parsons at the 8 pick, putting him and dropping him right in the middle, and then kind of shifting Shaq Thompson back out? That will address some need on the defensive side of the ball. And is there a positive spin to that if that is the case?
Sure. I think there's a positive spin to that. You know, I think Shaq belongs on the outside. He's not meant to be an interior linebacker, and he doesn't cover like an interior linebacker in pass coverage. I think that's where people maybe need to look the most at this. It's not that Shaq can't play the run in the middle, and I think it reflects that way because of how much he can struggle in the center and pass coverage. When you're so worried about making up for your inability to cover in the pass, then you start to not be able to stop the run either because you're focused on stopping the pass, right? And you're half a step late to the ball because of that. So I think it would be great if Parsons were to be able to fill that hole in the middle and maybe flex Shaq out to the side. I will say this, though. I feel like the Denzel Perryman sign was very much so to try to fill that hole. Mm-hmm. If we were to take Parsons at middle linebacker, it would make me curious as to if we would potentially explore a 3-4 system again at that point. Oh, wow. You know, I don't know. I doubt it. We're building towards a 4-3, and I prefer a 4-3. But
agreed.
It would be interesting to see them sign a guy like Denzel Perryman and then draft Micah Parsons and see what that competition looks like, because both of them obviously can't play. Does that mean that Carter doesn't play on the outside and maybe they try to make Denzel Perryman an outside linebacker, or maybe they try to flex Micah Parsons into an outside linebacker. Who knows? But I think if they were to take Parsons, there would be some decisions to be made and maybe some competition to be had for that linebacking spot.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. We have plenty of time to talk about it as we do get closed in on this draft that happens at the end of April. And you know, I love the draft. That's all I'm going to say. That's period. Me and Mackie were talking a few years back about some of the crazy things that have happened. Maybe there's something crazy that happens. The Minnesota Vikings, I'm sure you remember, Minnesota Vikings didn't get their pick in time, and the Carolina Panthers were able to jump them in the draft a few years ago. It's a fun time. It's wild. I'm sure this isn't the end of the NFL draft season. It's not going to happen exactly as it is now. There will be more trades to be made.
Sure.
If a quarterback does drop to that 8 spot, say, for instance, it is Zach Wilson.
Wow. Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Because some people are saying, hey, Mac Jones is going to be that guy for San Francisco. Hey, Justin Fields is going to be that guy. Trey Lance is going to be that guy. We mentioned it, one of these guys is going to be left out of those top 4 spots and fall to either 7 or to like that 10 range. If it is anyone other than Mac Jones, do you think the Panthers give it a slight bit of consideration to bring in another quarterback to join literally 6 other quarterbacks that they have on this squad right now with Tommy Stevens, PJ Walker, Teddy, Sam Darnold, and Will, everyone that they have? Do they give it a second thought?
I think they only give it a second thought if it's Fields, Wilson, or Lawrence, which I don't think it will be. I think we're talking a bit of hypotheticals now.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that Lance is an interesting one because I'm not sure how serious the Panthers were about Lance. I think they would have been had the Falcons not had the 4th pick. The Panthers aren't going to be willing to trade up with anybody else after the Falcons because they're worried the Falcons are going to take Trey Lance. So yeah. I think Lance would be the only other name there that they'd really consider at all. I don't think so. I think if they're gonna make the move they did for Darnold and stay at 8, I think they got to go somewhere else with that pick. I think you're reaching, honestly, for most people besides those top 4 quarterbacks that I just named. And my radar on Trey Lance has been very interesting. I'm not super sold yet on him, actually. He didn't play that many games in college. He played in a league that obviously is a much less competitive than a Division I college football and Power 5 conferences, with that being said. So Lance has a lot of talent. He's got some intangibles that I think are really nice. Has he been tested enough yet? Do we really feel great about the fact that he can stack up against the best of the best week in and week out? I don't know. I'm not sure. So for the Panthers to risk that at 8 with, like you said, already 4 quarterbacks in that room, I don't see that. I'm not sure I see that happening.
Gotcha. Well, like I said, we're going to have much more time to talk about that in future episodes of the All Access podcast. It is almost time to be wrapping up the show. We don't want to take up too much of your time, guys. We've been on here for about an hour today talking about the Carolina Panthers. Is there anything else going on in the world of Carolina and Charlotte sports that we need to get into right now? David Brown does say, if we're truly in a win-now mode, you cannot take a quarterback after we get Darnold, and I would have to agree with that. I think the Carolina Panthers are win now. That defense is set up to allow us to win now, or within the upcoming seasons will be win now, especially going back to the point that you said that, hey, a lot of these quarterbacks in the NFC South are aging out. The Panthers' opportunity to seize the NFC South is right now. So, yeah, if we're in win now,
we've got a young roster ready for it too, man. We've got a young roster ready for it too.
Yeah. So anything else happening in Charlotte and Carolina sports that you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Man, I had some notes on Sam Darnold that we didn't get to, and I kind of want to say just a couple of them if you got.
Absolutely, dude. I am all about talking about Sam Darnold. If you want to sit around, if you want to listen, let's build a campfire. Let's go get some s'mores, grab a couple 6-packs, because we're going to talk about Sam Darnold if you want to.
We're going to have a little nitro campfire discussion here on Sam Darnold. I know, we're running almost an hour here. Don't want to keep anybody waiting too long. But, dude, Sam Darnold, I mean, gosh, like you asked me early on how I felt about the news.
Yeah.
I told you early on, reacting to it right away, I was disappointed. Upon further reflection, I think there are things to consider and things to be interested about, right? I would say initially my hesitancy with this is I have actually been – Sam Darnold's been on my radar a long time. When back going to not the year he played at USC before he got drafted, but even the year before that, I was actually tuning into him college football on game days a little bit.
Yeah.
And for me, man, in college he turned the ball over way too much. He led the NCAA in interceptions the year before he got drafted.
Oh, wow.
Which blew me away that he was able to do that and then still get drafted as a lottery pick. That's unbelievable. The reason he was able to do that was he's also an offensive powerhouse. I mean, for every pick he was throwing 3 touchdowns. So,
yeah.
Or at least it felt that way. That's not an accurate stat or anything, but like he was just piling on touchdowns, and at the same time he was throwing a lot of interceptions. So for me, my thing with that is the NFL is going to be harder to score touchdowns and easier to turn the ball over. So with if turnovers are an issue for you in college, they're definitely going to be an issue for you in the NFL if you don't fix some things. So that was my initial reservation with Sam, is that he turns the ball over too much. And that's a big deal for me. Ball security and being able to take care of that football. I think Teddy kind of proved to a lot of people that that's obviously a big deal, right? So looking at that, I was a little stressed. The other thing I was stressed about is this guy. If we take his player option, which we are, it's an $18.8 million cap hit next year. Teddy Bridgewater this year, I know, is a $17 million hit. I don't know the exact number that he's posing next year, but it's certainly going to be around that wheelhouse. He did 12 and a half last year. He's doing 17 this year. It's going to be somewhere around there. So you're looking at, between Teddy and Sam next year in 2022, you're paying these guys right around, 30, $35 million between the two of them. That's a lot of cap.
It's a lot of money.
Using on two quarterbacks you're not even sure your franchise guy, right? So I just wasn't sure about the move from that standpoint at first. With that being said, Sam Darnold is a guy who immediately changes our offense in a way that Teddy simply could not do, and that is he takes the top off the defense.
Agreed.
And that is a humongous deal. I mean, when you have to have those safeties defensively, understanding that at any moment that ball can go over their head for an 80-yard touchdown, it changes the way you play defense. And teams last year against Teddy, they played nose down, hard to the line of scrimmage. The safeties would clamp down on us all the time, and it gave the Panthers no chance to get anything free towards the line of scrimmage because the defense knew that the ball couldn't go over the top. It wasn't even a concern. It's not that they were shutting it down. It wasn't even an option.
Yeah.
And so that changes the way that teams get to play defense against you. And Sam Darnold suddenly challenges that ideology, right? You have to back your safeties up at times, or you have to have somebody aware that a ball can come over your head at any moment, and that's going to free up so many things for guys like DJ and Robbie and Christian and a guy like Kyle Pitts underneath because of what Sam Darnold can do with his arm strength. I'll also say this. Sam Darnold played for the Jets, obviously a garbage organization over the last couple of years. People talk about the fact that Sam Darnold for us could be great, and we just don't know it because he's been playing for such a bad team. For the Jets in his career, he had 13 wins, 25 losses in 38 games played, through almost a 60% clip, 45 touchdowns, 39 picks, so he at least went over 500 there. 78.6 rating, which is not good. But again, playing for one of the worst teams. I'll highlight this stat in particular. He was sacked 98 times in 3 seasons for the Jets. That's a lot of sacks.
A lot of hits.
That puts you in the top 8 getting sacked in the league each year if you average that out. So he's getting sacked a lot. There's pressure in his face all the time. His best season for the Jets was 2019. He was 7-6 as a starter that year, had a 61.9% clip completion percentage there, threw for over 3,000 yards, 19 touchdowns, 13 picks, but he was sacked 33 times that season. That was an average of 3 per game, and that was 4th worst in the NFL that season. That's just terrible, and that's his best season, right? And that's not his fault that he's getting sacked. You can go watch clips of Sam Darnold being mobile in the pocket and moving outside the pocket and making throws on the run. He totally has the ability to do that. He's not even getting the chance to do that because he's getting sacked so quickly playing for the Jets. Might I add?
Please add.
The starting receivers that Sam Darnold has had.
Not good.
Listed in here. Starting in terms of at the beginning of the season with no injuries. Bashard Perryman, Denzel Mims, Jamison Crowder, Robbie Anderson, Demaryius Thomas, Jermaine Kearse. Those are the receivers that Sam Darnold has had to work with. I mean, just Robbie Anderson's the best name on that list, and he's on this team.
Just fantastic talent. And one of the things, and you mentioned Robbie Anderson, and Sam Darnold's ability to take the top off of defense, as you said, that's what made Robbie Anderson. People thought he was only a go route kind of guy. That's all he can do. He's a one-dimensional wide receiver. Just send him and go. Wind him up and let him run down the field. And that's what people were saying. That's all Robbie Anderson can do. He's not going to be able to do that. We saw, because of Teddy Bridgewater, we saw the complete opposite of that in this offense, where he was catching a 5-yard, 7-yard slant route and then taking it and making yards after the catch. He wasn't just a go route kind of guy, but Sam Darnold gives you that option where, hey,
Yes.
We don't have to play so close to the line of scrimmage, as you mentioned, because you've been on point today, Greg, where you mentioned the safeties are going to be playing up within that 12-yard box, and it makes it so much harder. Sam Darnold at least gives you that threat of there is the possibility that this guy who actually does have a working shoulder that can get you the ball down the field, that this can still happen. You mentioned a lot of the players that he played with. Sam Darnold was not surrounded by talent. Just did not have the opportunity to flourish. You can say that he has his problems. Agreed. But it is at least an upgrade as an option from what Teddy Bridgewater had proved he can give us. And I don't think you want to take another chance of another year of Teddy Bridgewater throwing it 7 yards down the field. If you are in the win now mode, like you've said and like David said in the chat, if you are in win now mode, go out, be aggressive, and at least have them battle each other in. If Teddy Bridgewater doesn't go anywhere, at least have them battle one another just to get a little bit better. Just don't get mono, Nick says in the chat as well, which is another thing that plagued him. He played what? He had to miss 4 games because of mono, man. Like, it's just been a bad situation for him, and I'm not going to make an excuse that he was not playing well because it was a bad situation, but you can't fault him at complete fault because he was in a bad situation where his team was never going to win. You could see that with Adam Gase, that the losses are going to be in his statistical column. The quarterback is always credited with the wins and losses, not the offensive line, not the wide receivers, not the running backs. The quarterback is credited with that. Now, if you look a little bit more in depth at some of those things, like you said, the completion percentage, the interceptions, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, but he's at least put in a scenario where he can perform a little bit better and improve those stats.
That's right. That's right. And man, my point with some of those is that he has nothing around him, and he's still putting up
decent.
19 touchdowns, 13 picks is the only real season he's had to work with. 11 of those 19 touchdowns were to Robbie Anderson, who is now on this team. So take that into account. I mean, Robbie Anderson's the only help he had on that team, and he squeezed every touchdown out of Robbie Anderson he could get that season. Yeah. Here's a stat that I think is going to blow your mind too, Bradley.
Bring it on.
I had fun looking at this one. Ready? The Jets have not had a Pro Bowl football player since 2015.
2015?
2015. The last 2 Pro Bowlers for the Jets were Darrelle Revis in 2015. And Nick Mangold, who was a center for them in 2015. Both were not on the roster by the time Sam Darnold got to the Jets.
That is crazy.
So Sam Darnold has never played with a person who earned a Pro Bowl with the Jets.
That is crazy that a team can allow, or a team can go that long without getting a Pro Bowler. I know it is a little bit of a talent and a popularity contest because it is fan voted, but at the same time, you realize that
you're in a New York market.
I was going to say you have one of the largest fan bases and markets not voting for you, though. That speaks volumes over how bad this team could actually be. I saw another thing earlier today that said the Jets have now officially traded their last 6 number 1 picks. We talked about the ability to get talent early in the draft. No one has gotten talent more early than the Jets. And they have traded away their last 6 first-round picks. So you're not even keeping the talent that you're bringing in to have a chance to win. All around, just a bad situation. And I think the Panthers have wholeheartedly won this trade. I still think everyone agrees. I would much rather have Deshaun Watson. Don't get me wrong. But to only give up a 2, a 4, and a 6, I think it is, for Sam Darnold over the next 3 years, I'm okay with that.
Let me put it to you this way too, Panther fans. Would you rather give up a second, and a 4th next year and a 6th this year for a guy who has an incredibly high ceiling and cannot get any worse than he's played so far? Or would you rather give up 4 first-round picks over the next 4 years and Christian McCaffrey and maybe a 2nd-round pick thrown in there, maybe some cash considerations, and get a guy who literally might never play football again? Just being honest about it. If we had made that trade a week before all these allegations come out, we have given away years of our franchise for a guy who might not play football. So this is a absolute humongous win over potentially throwing away our franchise for the next 4 years for a guy that we had no idea potentially could be going to jail. So, and I'm not trying to say that he's going to. I obviously I'm not talking on the legitimacy of those allegations, but I am saying I don't think he's going to play in the NFL until they get solved. And once they get solved, if he gets convicted of those allegations, he's never going to touch the field again. So it's just it's interesting. I think that overall, if you look at what could have happened versus what did happen, this is a win.
Yeah, and to bring up a point, again, join us in the chat, the All Access Podcast, youtube.com/allaccesssports. Whenever you want to join in when we are live, please join us because we want you to help drive the direction of the discussion. David says he's only 23 as well, which makes him officially younger than Joe Burrow. He is very young and has years, quote unquote, years of experience in the NFL. He's been adjusted. It takes people a while to adjust to the game. I don't know. I didn't play, but I've heard it takes a while to adjust to the game, to get up to the game speed. Well, Sam Darnold has had that opportunity. He's been getting, like you said, sacked over 90 times in the last 3 seasons. He's had to play at an accelerated rate and make decisions at an accelerated rate because he knows, hey, 2.7 seconds, that's all I have to get rid of this ball.
Yep.
Now maybe you can have 3 seconds and make a little bit longer decision to pivot from going from one option and Robbie Anderson on a go route to find CMC on the wheel route, DJ Moore on the curl, Pitts on a slant route on the side. You have a lot of options, and I'm excited to see what it is. I wasn't excited because I still think the top end quarterbacks in this draft could be better than Sam Darnold, but I'm coming around to it. I'm starting to understand why, and I'm going to look at the positive side. I'm an optimist. I'm going to look at the positive side, and I think there's a lot of good things to hope for with Sam Darnold coming in.
Man, and I'll tell you this. I think it's an interesting kind of ideology, but it's the one that I live by. Once you sign those papers and you put on the black and blue, man, I might harp on you for making mistakes, but I'm going to support you through
Absolutely.
and through. You know what I mean? If you're trying to help us win, I'm going to support you. So, what was I ecstatic that Sam Darnold was our next starting quarterback? No, I wasn't. But thinking on it now and considering some of the deeper meanings, the silver linings, am I coming around on it? Yes, absolutely. And am I going to support him and be screaming his name every Sunday? You are absolutely right. You could bet your butt on it.
Are you going to get the jersey? Are you going to get a Darnold jersey? That's what I need to know. Are you going to get a Darnold jersey?
I would say we need to do 2 things. We need to re-sign him after the season, and it would have to be a good season.
Okay, I'll agree to that one then. I'll be fine with that. But yeah, I'm in the same sentiment, man.
I think we'd have to be playoffs or just missing playoffs. Like I think if he, I think it's gonna be an obvious judgment, really. It's gonna be, oh, yep, he's looking good and he's got the weapons and we're really rolling and we might compete for the NFC South in the next year or two. And it might be, man, he is turning the ball over left and right and it is just like the Jets and that sucks. Oh well. Yeah. There's a lot of different ways this can go.
I would rather take a gamble with a new guy and be disappointed than to stick with the same old and expect to be disappointed with the outcome because that's just how the last bit of the season played out. But hopefully a healthy CMC, a healthy defense, a lots of young people on this team altogether, they can really threaten that NFC South, like you just mentioned. And I think that's just look ahead.
Best weapons Sam Darnold has had in his entire career playing football. At USC, I think the best receiver he had was, I think, Juju played there at the time. So Juju Smith-Schuster, obviously a good receiver now, but had a pretty low year for the Steelers this year. I think if you were to say that Sam Darnold's got Robbie, DJ, CMC, you add Kyle Pitts to the mix, that's the best tool set he's ever had.
Yeah. I think he is set up to be able to have his best year yet, especially with this coaching staff, Joe Brady, a real offseason with a quarterback. I got to remind everyone that Teddy didn't have that full offseason. CMC was down. I think you have a full offseason to get attenuated with the coaching staff, and I expect big, bright things with Sam Darnold and this offense. Real quick, last thing, in my opinion, unless you have anything else to add, I'm more than happy to keep talking about sports.
That's the last thing I wanted to touch on. We hadn't really talked about Sam yet, and I was hoping to. So, I'm satisfied.
We're going to continue to talk about Sam Bradford, or not Sam Bradford. God, please do not bring in Sam Bradford. Sam Darnold, same team, wrong name. Sam Darnold. We will have plenty of time to talk about him. Don't forget, every Sunday, Monday nights, usually 8 o'clock, we'll be live. And I'm sure we'll get into some more Darnold talk. I can't wait, by the way, for that Darnold and Arnold connection. Don't forget, the Panthers did sign Dan Arnold in the offseason to hopefully fill some tight end gaps there. But I forgot what I was going to say. I was so pumped up about Dan Arnold all of a sudden. I forgot what I was going to say. We're just gonna move on. Pretend like I had something insightful to say.
I've got a fun little query for you.
Yeah.
And for you Panther fans, if you're in the chat, hit me up with what you think's gonna happen too. Okay. So we've got DJ Moore right on the roster, wide receiver. Right.
Yeah.
So we just signed David Moore, also wide receiver. What is their name going to say on the back? And specifically, will DJ Moore's jersey say DJ Moore on the back?
That would be so sick to have a full DJ Moore jersey.
You see what I'm saying? Because typically in the NFL and in sports, if you have a last name that's the same as someone else, then use the first initial. But if the first initial matches, which is the case a lot of times with like twins and stuff, they use the second initial. Like take the Hornets, for example. I don't know if they do this for the Hornets, but when they played for Nevada, the Martin twins were C.A. Martin and C.O. Martin for Nevada, right? So my question is, will DJ Moore and David Moore be D.A. Moore and then literally DJ Moore on the back of his jersey?
That would be sick. I would be so pumped for that. Well, I feel like that didn't happen too long. It might have been the Giants. I think when they had Steve Smith was their wide receiver. I feel like they had an S.T. Smith and an S.H. Smith or something like that. But dude, the DJ Moore full jersey,
his full name. I don't know if anybody in NFL's history has actually had their full name on their jersey.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm hoping for that.
Dude, I hope so too. I would buy a DJ Moore jersey just to have DJ Moore on the back of my jersey.
I'm gonna start tweeting at him tonight. If y'all see All Access tweeting at DJ Moore, I'm gonna schedule a tweet now until the start of the season when jerseys are released. I'm gonna say, hey, DJ, listen, hear us out. Gray had a good idea. He just full name.
He tweeted yesterday, 2 days ago. You know how the NFL might do this number change thing where receivers can be like 1 through 10 now and stuff like that. So he said, should I switch back to 2 because that was his Maryland number, and everybody was talking about it, blah blah blah. Well, I shot into the comments and I said, with David Moore's arrival or something like that, are you going to be DJ Moore on the back? And for no reason, it got like a pretty good amount of likes and like some retweets and stuff. Like Panther fans are clearly seeing it and being like, oh yeah, like DJ Moore, like it was. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people have put enough thought into it. There's been a lot of signings this offseason, so I think David Moore's kind of the forgotten piece at this moment. Like you'll see a lot of graphics pop up, and people are like, "Oh yeah, Dan Arnold, they got him. Oh yeah, CMC's healthy again. And who's this 84 over here? I don't recognize him." And then you realize it's a Photoshop picture of David Moore. So, oh man, I'm excited. There's going to be so much happening this year for them.
In the chat, we appreciate you guys, man. This is my first time on with Bradley here, and to get some good feedback on the episode, I definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for everyone hopping in here. I saw a lot of people in here tonight. Again, David, Nick, I know y'all have been in the chat all night. Kristen, you were in here a little bit earlier. Stay grinding, JM. Thank you so much for hopping into the chat. We really do appreciate it. You can always help us drive the direction of the episode. If there's anything you want to hear us talk about, find us on Twitter at AllAccessCLT. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you are. I will be sure to follow you back. Me and Gray will definitely be following you back and hitting you up and let you know. Krusty Craig hopping in and saying, go Thurs. Craig, you're jumping into the end of the episode, but you can catch it back because we're putting this and uploading it live. Or well, we're not uploading it live. We're uploading it after this episode is done. So catch it on YouTube. Man, it's been a day. But that's all that we have for now. This is the All Access Podcast. We will be back here Thursday night, 8 o'clock. And it's going to be awesome. Great. Thank you so much for being in here. It was awesome. And I hope we can have you on here a whole lot more because it's going to be awesome.
Man, it was an absolute pleasure. And please let me know anytime you're talking sports, Panthers, Hornets. Doesn't matter, man. I'll hop on and we'll chat about it.
Heck yeah, guys. Well, thank you so much for hopping into this episode. Catch us again Thursday night, 8 o'clock right here on YouTube. You'll have a good one.